Hello and welcome into the Cubs on Deck podcast. I'm one of your hosts. My name is Greg Huss, and today I'm joined by two different guys with me. I'm joined by co-host Bryan Smith, but more importantly, no offense, Bryan, I'm joined by the broadcaster, the voice of the South Bend Cubs, Brendan King. BK, how's it going, buddy?
Fellas, always a pleasure. I look forward to March every year, not just because it's the anticipation of baseball season, but we get to sit down and do one of these. So, Greg, I know I get to see you a bunch when we're in Peoria and maybe some other stops, but I've talked to V. Smith in a minute now, so looking forward to chopping it up here.
Yeah, no, it's definitely good to see your face again. By the time people hear this, the Chicago Cubs will have started their season, so we made it through the off season. Baseball's back, and Huss, I heard that you are already making your ramen broth for breakfast ramen in the morning to celebrate the Cubs in Tokyo. Is that right?
That's exactly right. Honestly, this is perfect because this episode will come out. I'll edit this up. We're recording this on Monday night. I'll get this edited up tonight, posted, and it'll be ready for you guys to listen to first thing in the morning. You can go straight from watching the 5 a.m. Cubs game in Tokyo, and you can parlay that right into listening to Cubs on Deck podcast. It was meant to be. It's all a part of the plan. So you guys got to wake up at 5, or else, because you can't wait and watch the replay afterwards, because that's the time that you can listen to this podcast. So it's timed out perfectly. You're good to go. We're going through. This is the time of the year when we do the previews for each of the affiliates. BK, you get to go first here with the South Bend Cubs. We've got Sam lined up for later in the week. I'm actually recording with him tomorrow. He's going to be doing the Myrtle Beach preview. We'll get Cohen once he's done doing his thing over in Tokyo. He'll preview the Iowa Cubs, and we'll get on with the Tennessee preview as well. But we're leading off here at the High A affiliate in South Bend, and we're going to get into that, get into players, get into UBK here in a little bit. But right off the top, I do want to talk a little bit about the spring breakout game, because that happened just the other day. That was on Saturday that happened, and it is the coolest event, man. Like I was live posting about it on Blue Sky, but it's just like it is geared towards us on this podcast, or the people that are listening to this podcast. Like, it is marketed to this crowd so hard, where we just had this event where there's all these different Cubs prospects from all the different levels. It was terrific. It's great to follow. It's great to watch. I had a blast and enjoying it over that weekend.
Yeah, I mean, it looked awesome. And plus, they said like a crowd of 10,000 was there at Sloan Park. So that's absolutely insanity for just minor league prospects. I understand there were some big names, but I mean, back in the day, I remember a long time ago, I went out to spring training at the old Ho'ohawk with my family, and there were not 10,000 people going for normal games, let alone a spring breakout game. And actually, I was going to say about Alex Cohen, I mean, your podcast with him might be like 4 hours long, because 2 hours is just going to be about food in Japan. That guy and Scotty and Taylor are just putting down just endless amounts of amazing looking food. But no
content.
Unreal content. But no, about the spring breakout, man. I mean, that's it's nice because last year got rained out between the Cubs and Sox, and we were looking forward to that one so much. And I mean, it was cool to see top to bottom some of the older prospects, some of the younger prospects getting together and gelling into one. And I think that's a cool thing for Cubs fans to see, because this has kind of been the case since, 18, 19. Like, you hear about these younger guys, and when are they going to prosper? When are they going to take that step? And now you see guys like Sisneros and Alcantara and others at this cusp of being great, and you still mix that in with some younger kids. This is exactly what we've heard about, and exactly what we have hoped the Cubs system to be since the sell-off of the World Series guys. So I think the fact that now people are seeing it in action, and like Chicago sports radio is talking about this, and the names that are coming up, I think it's a big deal, because people that maybe were a little hesitant to get into the system, and they did not want to maybe fully believe, they had to see it with their own eyes, that what it could be. I think this weekend was a big step for that.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on that. I've got a few bullet points here on my list, and Bryan, like, I think it's interesting that the structure of the game, where I have that Moises Ballesteros ended up getting 2 hits. James Triantos Jr. Now apparently he's wearing Triantos Jr. on his back, but James Triantos Jr. getting 2 hits. We've got Kevin Alcantara hitting a home run. Those high level, like upper level guys paired with the young guys got to play, right? We got to see at bats from Angel Cepeda. We got to see at bats from Pedro Ramirez, from Cristian Hernandez. We got to see Fernando Cruz got in that game, I believe. And it is fun to see all these young guys paired with the older guys at the upper levels.
Yeah, we're so sort of conditioned for prospects in spring training to mean like the back end of big league spring training games where the announcers don't even really know what prospect just came into the game because they're wearing the same number as two other guys. And, for there to be a game where these guys are really the focus. I mean, Brendan knows like how much it matters to these guys who, some of them probably don't even ever get out of A-ball, but they always have this memory of playing in Sloan Park with a Cubs uniform. Like, that stuff matters. And it was just really cool to see guys live out the first part of their dream there.
I'll throw out 3 performances that caught my eye, and then we'll head over to South Bend. Cade Horton started the game on the mound for the Cubs. All right, first inning, tremendous second inning. Looked really, really good on the mound that second inning, and that's fun. We'll be excited to see him in Iowa to start off this year. Jaxon Wiggins pitched this in that event.
Loud.
He was loud is right. I mean, high 90s with the fastball, high 80s with the slider. Looked really good.
Strikeout on a changeup.
To a righty hitter.
To Christian Moore, I think.
Yeah, he struck out Christian Moore on a right changeup. And so that's super fun. Will Sanders also, I thought Will Sanders looked pretty good too. And the thing with Will Sanders was what actually stood out the most to me with Will Sanders was he was interviewed after his performance in the dugout. It was an interview that Cole Wright, Lance Brozdowski, and was it Elise Miniker? Yeah, Elise Miniker was on the call. And Will is an absolute character. BK, is he always that way?
It's the classic example of you don't know exactly what you're going to get from this guy when you first chat with him, but you talk to him for 5 minutes and he's your best friend.
Yeah,
it's amazing. He's got the charisma, he's got the personality, and listen, I think that's a bigger deal than a lot of people realize sometimes, especially with the market that they're going to. And it takes a minute, man. It really does take a minute for guys to get comfortable with that, because no disrespect to the current setup in major leagues, but in Sacramento and wherever the Rays are playing this year, there's just not going to be cameras in those guys' face. Yeah, you get off the start at Wrigley, there's going to be a camera in your face. There's going to be dozens of media people asking either A, what, positives, or B, why'd you give up 6 today?
Yeah.
What was going on? So I think Will's the perfect guy because he keeps it light. He's honest, and he's really good. So I think for where he's going, he's perfect for Chicago media.
Yeah, I finished watching that interview and I was like, we got to get him on the show, because just like you're right, the charisma, how candid he was in some of his answers in that interview, like he's a guy that I think a lot of people will be fans of, kind of the way he carries himself, the way he interviews and stuff like that. So that was actually one of my standout things of the entire game, was that interview mid-game in the dugout, which is awesome. All right, guys, let's transition from spring breakout. Let's talk about the South Bend Cubs. That's what we're here today to talk about, is the South Bend Cubs preview of the 2025 season. That's why we got you on here, BK. But before we get into the players specifically, I want to talk to you about just being in the booth. I want to hear about last year. What were your favorite moments from last year? What are you excited about carrying over last year into this year? Talk to me about you being in the booth in South Bend.
I think, first of all, I've got to give the biggest shout out in the world to one of the greatest partners I've ever had, Max Toma, who has moved down the line. Max is not going to be with us this year in the South Bend booth. And also a huge shout out to a guy you mentioned a little bit earlier, Sam Weeder, actually announced today that he was going to be departing. I'd known that for about a couple weeks, and I'll let Sam talk about himself, about his future plans, but he's going places, man, and he's getting a heck of an opportunity to go be great where he's going. So I'll tease that and let him talk about that when he comes on. Go ahead.
Real quick with Sam, I'll mention it again when we record with them, but he texted me and he goes, hey, he let me know that he wasn't going to be in Myrtle Beach anymore. And he goes, hey, is it okay if I still come? Because we already made plans for him to preview the Pelican season. And then he texted me. He goes, "Hey, is it okay if I still come on?" I was like, "Dude, like you don't have to ask. Hell yeah, you can." It was just such a nice thing for him to do. Is he's just a nice guy. But he was like, "Can I still come on?" I was like, "Yeah, of course you can still come on to preview the Pelicans." So I just thought that was a funny note in Sam Weeder hat.
Tell you, man, it's that Indiana kindness. I am not an Indiana native, but when I got here for college, it stood out right away. So no, I think right off the bat, those are two things I'm going to miss. I'm going to miss chopping it up with Max, who was just an unbelievable partner, and he's got an unreal future too, and he's going to be doing some big college baseball games, and he's still going to be doing the Chicago Fire. So huge things coming up for Max, and then I'm really going to miss being in the same org as Sam because we really kind of tagged it. We're the Butler boys, at the sections of the Cubs farm system. So who would have thought? I mean, I was a senior when he was a freshman at Butler, and I remember right before I graduated, I was going out to Boise. B. Smith, you know Boise, Idaho, well, former
sure,
Philly.
Yeah.
So I was going out to Boise, and 2 weeks before I graduated, there was a AAU basketball tournament in Indy, and like every college basketball coach was there. So at the time, Coach K, Calipari, Patino, you name it, college coach was there. They asked me and Sam to do the event. We ended up doing like 12 games in 3 days. My voice was gone by the end of it, and it was a heck of a time. And that was kind of a passing of the guard at the time because I was the Butler student guy doing all the games, and they asked me who should take my place, and there was one answer: Sam Wiederhaft. So he got the great reps there, and he's got a great future coming up. So anyway, long-windedly there. Really excited to be back in the booth in South Bend. We got Tyler Reedy coming in as the number 2 announcer. He's current voice of Notre Dame hockey. He's a Notre Dame student, and he's kind of in my shoes, guys, where I was my first couple of years working with Darren Pritchett. So it's hard to believe going into year 7 in the Cubs org. That happened pretty quick. I got here in 18, obviously won the title in 19. There was COVID, and then won another title in 22, and some good memories. So excited to welcome in Tyler, and hopefully he can have as rewarding of an experience as I did my first 2 years. And the big thing with him is hopefully he can get some reps and have a good time.
Yeah. I mean, you still haven't been around longer than Miguel Amaya, so that's the judge, right?
We actually, true. It's funny. Miggy caught the 20-inning game between the Boise Hawks and the Eugene Emeralds back in 2017. July 4th. So
wow,
he caught the entirety of that thing, and then he was on the 2018 South Bend Cubs, of course, when he caught Yu Darvish and was 19. So we had some good memories from that 20-inning game. 4.5 hours. 6.5 hours. Yeah, 6.5 hours.
He caught every inning of that game?
20 innings. No, and actually, crazy, both catchers caught all 20 innings. Sam Titeback, who actually played in the Cubs org years ago and then signed with the Rockies, caught all 20, and then so did Miggy. And then I don't know if we've ever had a conversation about this game, Greg. If the game ended, we were on the road, top of the 20th inning. J.B. Moss, who was a Texas A&M guy, hits a inside the park grand slam. That's the game-winning hit. And here's the kicker of that game. From innings 13 to 17, Teddy Payne threw 4 innings of scoreless relief.
That's incredible. That's the most short season, because that's short season, right? That's the most short season thing I've ever heard in my entire life.
Yeah. Oh my. Short season. It was a home and home. So we played the 1st and 2nd of July in Boise, and then bust 8 hours to play the 3rd and 4th in Eugene.
Jeez, you gotta love the schedule makers.
Oh,
that's still minor league. It's unbelievable. All right, so I do want to get into these players here. We got plenty of players to cover in the next half hour or so. Let's go ahead and kick things off, because there's a few. I've kind of separated out these players into. Actually, hold on. Before we get into this, I got to preface this. I do this every year with every single preview. Is that we don't know where players are going to be assigned yet. It is right now. It is March 17th. The rosters have not been set up. So this is going entirely based on my projections of where players are going to go. I know Brian has some of his own projections, and they're probably slightly different than mine. But I just want to be able to hit on the important players at every level as we're kind of going through them. And
even backfields games just started maybe the last 4 or 5 days, and sometimes those give you a little bit of hints if you know how to read between the lines a little bit. But we haven't had enough games to even be able to make much sense of those even. So yeah, we're flying educated but blind.
Yeah. So if we talk about Cristian Hernandez here, which we will be, and he gets assigned to Tennessee, then don't blame me for that wrong assessment. So let's actually talk about Cristian Hernandez first, because BK, you got to see a little bit of Cristian last year after he got called up from Myrtle Beach. Assuming he gets assigned back to South Bend to start off this year, I bet he's manning shortstop pretty much every day for the South Bend Cubs team.
I could see it. I think the fun part about when he got there last year is as loaded of an infield as I've ever had in my tenure in South Bend, because you pair him in a trio with Cristian, Jefferson Rojas, and Pedro Ramirez.
Yeah.
I think at the time Felix Stevens was still on the team. I don't think he had gone to Double-A yet. So the infield was just, oh my God, like it's unfair. Felix, Pedro, Jefferson, and Cristian. I mean, that was insane. So no, I think what stood out right away is you see him, and his reputation preceded him, of course. And after Jefferson Rojas did what he did at Myrtle and started the season at South Bend, I mean, heck, Jefferson's first swing last year was a homer oppo in Quad Cities with the wind blowing in off the Mississippi River. So if you saw that, you're like, okay, well, Jefferson's that good. How good is Cristian Hernandez? Because he had to be this good to jump past Cristian, and that's exactly what happened. I think I really was impressed more than anything, both of them, Jefferson and Cristian, about their just opposite field ability. It's a pretty swing. But I think what stands out is just the room to grow. The room to grow, because he's got the length, and he's tall and not even close to being done growing. I mean, he could get taller. He could get, obviously going to get bigger. I mean, who was I talking about this with? I forgot. But somebody was talking about of what these guys can eventually look like. I think Gleyber Torres is the perfect example, because Gleyber has really grown into his body, and he now looks like a powerful big leaguer. That's exactly what Cristian Hernandez can look like once they get him on the feeding regimen and they get him in the gym. So, yeah, I think him starting the year at high A, it's going to be tough because it's going to be his first time playing in the cold for the first time, and that usually hits guys decently hard. But if there's anybody that can survive it, and plus his ability, because he's not a pole-heavy guy, or at least he was when he got to South Bend, maybe he used to be, that's only going to help him if he can slap the ball the other way, especially when it's cold.
Yeah, I mean, you probably saw it in batting practice a couple of times, but he didn't hit for power last year, but he certainly has it. And if you go see him in the backfields of spring training, or I'm sure when he was even in South Bend, when he lets it loose in batting practice, there's still plenty of juice to dream on in the bat, right?
There were many, many, many tiki hut shots during batting practice, especially when the wind picks up in South Bend and it's blowing out dead center. You're probably going to have a good day, but he didn't need the help of that. So no, but that's where the potential of the body just gets more exciting, because he's going to continue to put on LBs. And it's not, I don't know. I'm not a huge worrier about when a guy doesn't have power at low A or high A.
Yeah.
I think, to me, that's the cherry on top. If a guy has power at a young age, I mean, Felix, a guy like Felix is the anomaly, right? I mean, that's just absurd, ridiculous, the way he hits the ball. But no, if a guy is not hitting home runs at low A or high A at that age, like Jefferson last year, I think Jefferson might have had 6 last year with us.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just going to double this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the big thing too is that, like we like Brian said, like he has that raw power that he can show off in batting practice. And when he was signed, there was all the talks about his big time power. It's like, okay, but like that can be reincorporated back into the mix after we saw a year that we saw from last year where he was not swinging and missing a whole lot. He was hitting for more contact. Like that was something that we did not see from him 2 years ago in 2023. We didn't see we saw a lot of low batting average, a lot of swing and miss, a lot of strikeouts. He cut that back. All right, let's consistently do that again this year in 2025, but kind of reincorporate the power as it continues to climb the ladder a little bit, right?
Totally. And I'll even compare it to Pedro Ramirez at the end of last year too. I mean, Pedro was the hottest hitter in baseball in the month of May. Like he had a 26 for 44 stretch at the plate in May. And it was like 2 home runs. And then at the end of the year, he had that walk-off slam. And it was a nuke. But you don't think of Pedro as a guy that just crushes everything. You think of a guy that puts the ball in place. So I think that's for the better, guys. I want to see a guy's entire skill set at this level. I don't want them to worry about power. I don't want them to worry about, hey, I'm pulling the ball too much. Just gel. I think that's what this level is for. There is a point where, people talk a little too much about, hey, this guy has to do this or else it's not happening or else he's a bust. I'm just not at that point because I even look at Ed Howard. Ed last year, if he went to college, he would have been a college senior.
Yeah.
And the way we think about college seniors in a lot of those cases, like, oh, he's just getting drafted. He's going to be awesome. By the time he's 25, he's going to be a big leaguer. And for Ed Howard, I think it's all the better. He's had 4 years of pro experience. I think sometimes we get too caught up in the age thing. It's like, this guy's supposed to be a college sophomore. Let's back it off a little bit and let him gel.
What's exciting to me about Cristian is I feel like the organization is allowing the narrative to change a little bit, where I think when he got to Myrtle Beach and struggled, if you read how the organization talked about him, it was very much like, this is a guy that needs to learn maturity. This is a guy that, needs to improve his sort of day-to-day regimen. Now, like, Jason Kanzler, the farm director, just gave an interview to Jonathan Mayo, and they talked about Cristian, and it was very much like, this guy could be something. Like, this guy is still has the ceiling that he had when we signed him, and it's a really good sign if they're allowing Cristian to sort of believe in what he thinks of himself again, because I think he had a lot of self-confidence and then he got hit in the face. Yes. And then he succeeded last year, and now they're building it back up and saying, hey, like, go be great. You can be great. And, maybe that means BK gets to see him be great for a summer here.
That'd be nice.
I think that's fun. I think it's awesome. I know we talked a little bit about Cristian's power. There's a few guys I want to talk about. I have on my note sheet, they're just labeled as big boys. That's just, I have them labeled as big boys because we got 4 guys that I have projected to South Bend. And I'm not sure where they're going to play. I don't know who's going to play DH versus first base versus left field, maybe. I don't know. But Cole Mathis, Ivan Brettauer, Edgar Alvarez, and Cameron Sisneros are 4 large human beings. And we can kind of talk about them as a group to a certain degree. But Cole Mathis is a guy we've seen. He was in the spring breakout game. He was DHing there. He's still working his way back from Tommy John surgery. And so, like, he's going to be the DH when he's playing, assuming that he gets assigned to South Bend out the gate. He's going to be the DH because he can't throw, right? And so you have Edgar Alvarez and Cameron Sisneros. Those are 2 guys that were drafted last year, both large human beings. Cameron Sisneros, as we talked about, is a rowdy boy from, was he East Carolina, I think? Like, he looks like he played at East Carolina last year. And then, again, Ivan Brettauer, who he's more of an outfielder, right? He's a left fielder, right fielder. But we've seen Ivan Brettauer in a lot of Major League spring training games this year, like more than a handful of spring training games. And so I'll kick it to Brian first, and BK, you can fill in as you want to. But these 4 big guys, who are you liking here, Brian? And then what are you looking out for as far as kind of position, how it fits for this roster?
I mean, it's been really exciting to see that Cole Mathis is already getting at bats. He had Tommy John surgery last summer. That he's going to be, it looks like, ready to go here is really exciting. There could be a 5th big boy because Andy Garriola could come back to South Bend and he certainly fits the bill. So, Brendan said, home runs are a bonus in high A, but I think they might be a common thing in South Bend this year with all those guys.
Yeah, BK,
that would be fun.
You might get to see a show this year.
That'd be fun. I mean, yeah, I love Andy, and we only had him for maybe 2 months because he had that forearm injury at the end. So I'd love to get him back. And, that's kind of something we didn't have early last year. Maybe besides a Jonathan Long, there was not many guys hitting the ball out of the ballpark early for us last season. So, and again, it's really tough to hit the ball out of the yard early in the Midwest League season. The first month, I don't even look at stats. The first month really too in depth. But I did want to bring up Edgar Alvarez because he made his pro debut with us, and they challenged him, man. I mean, talk about something that's not easy. Pro debut at High A, middle of the summer, and I think it's even more impressive because I was just looking up while B. Smith was talking. Edgar Alvarez, I totally forgot about this, had multi-hit efforts in his first 2 games as a pro, and then he ended up just torching Fort Wayne. Fort Wayne, for whatever reason, was the team he just unloaded on. Hit 450 against Fort Wayne. He played the most games among anybody for the South Bend Cubs in the second half against Fort Wayne, because we saw them like 3 times. He played in every one of those series, and he just lit them up. So I think Edgar Alvarez has a little untapped potential as well, because he only hit 1 home run. He definitely put good enough swings to homer more than once, but also was impressed with his opposite field ability. And actually, I was most impressed by his ability to just jam it right back to the pitcher and hit it up the middle. I don't think there was anybody more impressive that came to us late in the season of just slapping it in the center field than Edgar Alvarez. Did not rely on pulling the ball. And tell you what, the velos at spring training, take a look at spring training, at BP, take a look at the iPads. Edgar Alvarez was putting up as good of numbers as anybody in batting practice. So I was super impressed. Definitely belongs on the big boy list. And I would not want to be a Midwest League pitcher if I've got 3-4 coming up and it's Garriola followed by Alvarez, and you got to pitch to both of them with 2 men on.
Yeah,
that could be a nice little weapon for Nick Lovello in that Cubs dugout if Andy and Edgar both start with us.
Yeah, I think that it's interesting that he did get promoted up to South Bend, Alvarez, to start off his pro career, because he was a Nicholls State guy, right? Edgar Alvarez, and it's like, so you're not coming from an SEC program and then skipping over to over low A, which is like that's a common thing, right? Like we see that from SEC guys, from ACC guys, from Pac-12 guys, stuff like that. RIP Pac-12, but from a guy from Nicholls State going straight up to high A in his season that he was drafted is an aggressive promotion, even if he is an older guy. Like, he's an older guy, obviously, but like it's still a big adjustment, I guess, is more what I'm saying. So
yeah, and I mean to that point, his first 9 games with South Bend, he had 1 walk and 15 strikeouts. The 18 games after that, he had 14 walks and 21 strikeouts. So, he very quickly adjusted to the league and started taking the walks that pitchers at that level are willing to give you if you work the at bat hard enough. And so, kudos to him for adjusting after, 2 series basically.
Right. And even more so when you get to high A and you're in your first week as a pro, you're facing, a lot of these international guys have been in pro ball for 6-7 years.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, they're starting to pitch pro when they're 16 in the Dominican Summer League. So you get a guy in his first week as pro. I'm sure Edgar Alvarez saw plenty of good pitching at Nicholls State, but nothing like he saw when he got to the Midwest League. So yeah, that quick adjustment, that was something to see. I was really impressed. So again, I hope we get him back.
BK, what do you make of a guy like Ivan Brettauer, who was drafted last year? He was a 2024 draft pick, and he comes to spring training this year, and he's getting into all these major league spring training games. Is that just a testament to what the front office thinks of him and kind of his character, in addition to his skills on the field?
I would think so. I'm just trying to think of anybody else that has been in that spot before on the fly that I saw getting that many looks after a year being drafted, and one doesn't really come to mind of somebody that
exists, but I'm not.
Who? Sorry,
I said I'm sure one exists, but I'm not. Nothing's coming to mind for me.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of my tenure in South Bend. I mean, even guys like, it took a while for Owen Casey to get in big league spring training games and getting those types of at bats. So, you think about a guy like OC who came over in the Darvish trade. I mean, he was been a high level prospect for a long time, but it was a slow burn with getting him towards that level because he was with us the entirety of 22, and then they kept it slow in 23 in Tennessee. So that obviously means the kid's standing out, and hopefully it leads to good things.
Greg, do we need to impose some sort of penalty on BK if he goes over maybe 5 times this year comparing Brettauer to Aaron Judge?
Dude, I was you were gonna say that was literally coming out of my mouth right
we
now.
We might have to have some sort of like swear jar in the booth that every time you say Aaron Judge in the same at bat that Brettauer's having, you got to throw a little in the swear jar.
Well, you shouldn't have told me about it, because now it's going to be in the back of my head. I was like, I can't say it.
I think it's 1 a week. I think it's for a new opponent. As other people that aren't following the Cubs prospects tune in, you get one. Ivan Brettauer models his game after Aaron Judge. You get one of those a week, and then that's it.
Good to know. Should I do my best John Sterling?
There you go.
It is high. It is far. It is gone.
Wait, never mind. No, I love that. Anybody else you want to hit on with the big boys here between Mathis, Brettauer, Alvarez, or Sisneros, guys? Or want to move on to a couple other hitters here?
No, otherwise I just, I'll throw in the same as B. Smith. I'm really excited to see what Garriola does because
Yeah.
he was just starting to really take off. He had
Yeah.
the power. He had the power right away in South Bend, and he had a couple multi-hit games, but then the pitchers started to figure him out a little bit, and then right when he got hurt, he was really starting to pick it up that last couple weeks. So I was really bummed he didn't play with us the last 2 weeks because he was really finding his stride at high A.
I've got Ariel Armas slated for the catcher slot in South Bend. I know that he got a few games in at South Bend last year, BK, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I've got slotted in as a starting catcher there this year. What are your thoughts on when you got to see a little bit of Armas last year?
Really stood out. And that's another thing I don't really look at, guys, is young catchers at the plate. I totally look at them defensively. Again, if they have a good stretch at the plate, more power to them. That's the cherry on top. But I really don't look at young catchers and their numbers, especially where Armas was in the same spot as Alvarez. He's coming into the situation. He's got to learn the brand new pitching staff. He's got to adjust to the arms. So I didn't even take into account his bat. But defensively, not only did he do a terrific job studying the South Bend bullpen and rotation, you would have thought he'd been there all year. You would have thought it was Ethan Hearn wearing an Armas jersey. Seriously. So that's all credit to him, man. He was super smart to talk to. It's the awesome nugget. He played in the College World Series, and he got that experience. I had a really good time getting to know him from that perspective and hearing those stories. But no, that guy is a pro. A pro's pro. So I can only imagine how good he's going to be behind the dish with not only a spring training under his belt, but also being with the same guys all year.
And how much he'll probably help the pitching staff there and help those individual developments too.
Yeah. Brian, we have talked about it a lot, how there's just a ton of catchers in this organization that seem to be really good at working with pitchers or defensive guys or really good receivers or just good clubhouse guys. And that has a lot of, in addition to Armas, I think that we might see Miguel Pabon in South Bend this year. David Avitia has spent some time all up and down the organization. Ethan Hearn, I've got him projected for Knoxville in AA. We just saw Hearn and Armas homer in the spring breakout game. But I have to imagine that it really has a big impact on the pitchers, seeing that they may not be top prospects. They may not be Moises Ballesteros out there in terms of getting the top 100 love. But, in terms of helping to develop the young pitchers in the organization, that's got to help pretty significantly.
Yeah, that there is no coincidence that the Cubs just happen to have these catchers that are, that are smart, that are easy to talk to, that are good at working with pitchers. That is a very deliberate decision that's made in the player development department.
Let's talk. I got two more names as far as hitters to go here. And BK, you haven't seen either of these two guys. They both spent the year last year in Myrtle Beach, and that's Eriandys Ramon, who is an infielder. He'll play. If Cristian Hernandez is at short, then Eriandys will be at second. He'll be at third. He may get some innings over at shortstop. And then you got Leo Espinoza, who is one of my favorite players to watch in the entire organization. He's a center fielder, can run, can go out there and get it in center field. Good bats of ball. Two players that are very different ends of the spectrum in terms of Leo is kind of. It seemed like he kind of gradually entered being a good hitter, and Eriandys Ramon just all of a sudden just popped up out of nowhere, Brian, and really showed out last year during his short time early on in Myrtle Beach, and then kind of hit a wall. But I think we might see both these guys in South Bend to start off this year, don't you think?
Yeah, totally. I think Brendan will like them. They are two guys that have a really nice combination of there's enough twitch there to see big league potential in them, but then there's still some smoothness to the way they play too that means that they're sort of unlikely to be overwhelmed at the level for super long stretches. So yeah, those are two good breakout candidates for the organization. Ramon became the golden boy of Cubs prospect Twitter for a week there. And, I could see everyone just again, trying to fight to say, I liked him first if he has a good month there.
BK, what are guys like Eriandys Ramon, an infielder, and Leo Espinoza, an outfielder, getting from the coaching staff that we see in South Bend as they kind of enter that level?
Yeah, good question. I think Nick Lovello, especially in year two, he had to learn so much last year on the fly, with it not only being his first opportunity to manage at a full season level, but another thing is just adjusting to the everyday of being a manager at the full season level. And those are two entirely different things. You know, the everyday of it is planning out all the workouts, writing the lineups, taking into account any injuries. I mean, it is an all-day thing. And Nick's getting to the park every day at 11 a.m. and he, as tireless of a worker as I've been around. I mean, the work reminded me honestly of Buddy, because Buddy shows up at the park at 10 and just stays there and works. And Nick is cut from the same cloth. I'm sure he's taken plenty of that from his dad and learning all kinds of nuggets about what works. So him coming back for year 2, I think now he knows how it works. He knows what to do, and he's going to take off and he's going to be able to pass along plenty of knowledge and wisdom, because former middle infielder, he was at the low levels in the minors, guy gets it. And then also, Nate Spears, our hitting coach, terrific hitting coach, but also, I mean, the guy lived the big league grind every day. Former Tennessee Smoke, he was involved in the Corey Patterson trade. I mean, as day one as it gets in minor league balls. And, former outfielder, former first baseman. And even though he leads the hitting department in South Bend, I mean, he's going to be able to answer any and every question that any young guy might have. So, yeah, it's the coaching staff. I'm really excited about it to get those returners back. And then actually, just to throw this in, our pitching coach is going to be George Thanopoulos. And I had George as a player on that 2017 Boise team. So he pitched in that 20-inning game in Eugene. And I looked up the box score after it got announced that he's going to be our pitching coach. So looking forward to being back with George. And I think that means I'm officially old, because now one of my former players is now a coach. So I'm entering that realm.
I've heard a lot of praise from pitchers in the organization working with George. He's a really smart guy that's been under, I know, Casey Jacobson's wing, just learning, pitch design stuff. And I think he's going to have a lot of success there.
Yeah, guy's the man.
All right, guys, let's transition to starting pitchers. We got some good ones in the South Bend rotation. This one's tricky, man. Again, when I emphasize, we don't know where these guys are going to be assigned. The South Bend, Tennessee conundrum.
Yeah, we kind of said, I think, in our last episode together, Greg, there's just going to be somebody that returns to South Bend, and that's just the way the math is going to work. And so we're just sort of left guessing, I guess, on who that guy is, whether it's, it doesn't seem like it'll be Jaxon Wiggins, I guess, just based on the quality of that spring breakout game and where his stuff's at, whether it's Drew Gray or Arian Rodriguez. I mean, I want to jump out. I want to see if Brendan's as high on Arian Rodriguez as I am, because I watched every one of those starts of his in the last month. He didn't allow a run his last 3 outings. I don't know if you remember that Great Lakes start he had near the end. I think your guys' last home game with him just seemed like a guy that got so much better. Do you see the big league special potential in there that I see?
I do. And there was a little bit of prove it, because when he arrived and they put him in the starting rotation, you're like, okay, well, let's see how this goes. And the first few outings, you're like, okay, well, he's got the arm. Does he have the secondary stuff? And as the months went on, he's got the secondary stuff. And then the question, does he have the changeup? He has the changeup. And then it's just like puzzle piece after puzzle piece. And it was kind of a long burn, because it was that step-by-step of kind of put the appearances into groups of 3. That first window, establishing the fastball, first pitch strikes. That second window, being able to command all of that and then adding the slider. That third window, being able to do all that and then adding the changeup. And by the end of it, you mentioned that Great Lakes game. Those last few outings, slice and dice, man. This is going to sound a little, but those last few outings reminded me of a peak Braylon Marquez. A guy couldn't touch, nobody could touch him. And I understand Braylon was a totally different animal, but you're in a position right now where it's a win-win. If Erian can continue to find that here this season and do everything he did last year, he's a legitimate starting pitching prospect.
Yeah.
But at any point, if the Cubs are like, all right, we like you, but let's just take it down a notch, and you focus on fastball slider, the guy could be a hell of a closer. So this is a win-win.
And a guy that kind of popped up on the radars for the first time last year too, right? This is not a guy like Drew Gray, where we've had our eyes on Drew Gray for the past 4 years since he was drafted. Just kind of popped on the radars last year. I wanted to emphasize Erian Rodriguez today, because I have Drew Gray and Jaxon Wiggins projected for Tennessee for Knoxville, right? Man, guys, I'm gonna get there eventually, calling it Knoxville, but today is not that day. It's Drew Gray and Jaxon Wiggins for Knoxville right now. But BK, I do want to get your thoughts on those guys real quick because you're here and you got to see them last year. Drew Gray and Jaxon Wiggins, what are your thoughts?
Jaxon Wiggins, as complete of an arsenal as I've seen come through. And when he found the command, it was as spooky of a set of stuff as I've ever seen. I mean, there came a point where it's like, get him out of here, man. I really would have liked to see a double-A start for him last year. I know I have no power over that, but I think it would have been valuable to see, but I get it.
Yeah.
Drew Gray strikes out the side in his first Midwest League inning. You're like, okay, this is what we've heard. But, it came to a point where the command got him in trouble. But if there's any sort of positivity there, that was his only issue.
Yeah.
That was his only issue. I never got to a point where I was worried about anything other than, hey, like his command's off. You can fix it. Just reset the mechanics. And I thought Bruce Billings did a great job with Drew last year.
Yeah, the command got better.
Yeah.
It did. It did. And when it did, I mean, it was funny because the struggles were kind of sandwiched between just two brilliant sections of the year. He was so good early, ran into trouble, and found it out late and figured it out. So, yeah, I think, man, I daydream about Jaxon Wiggins starts at Wrigley and just how good that can be. But, Drew Gray kind of has Brendan Little in my, that's kind of where I see it. I don't know if he can last as a starter, but Brendan Little, and credit to him because he's still pitching with Toronto and he's on that big league roster. Brendan Little was able to kind of narrow it down. I realize it's two totally different sets of stories, but Brendan was able to become a reliever and find the proper stuff. And I can only imagine Drew, an inning or two of Drew and just letting loose and bringing it with the fastball curve combo. I mean, that could be lethal. So, yeah, kind of the same answer as Rodriguez. I think it's a win-win for both guys, no matter what they end up being. Those are big leaguers.
The big thing with Drew for me is that, like, not only can he just let it fly if he goes over to the bullpen, but he can simplify things where it's like, all right, like simplifying things seems really important for Drew Gray in his development. I don't know. I just kind of see that in him. But yeah, Jaxon Wiggins, man, I'm getting more and more excited about Jaxon Wiggins every day. It's the fastball up in the zone. It's the changeup that he flashes from time to time. Like that changeup was really. He didn't use it much last year. He really.
I honestly thought it was better. I thought it was better, more starts in South Bend than his slider was. I think the slider rates as the better pitch, but I think that there would be starts where he just couldn't throw a slider like remotely close to the plate, and he would lean to the changeup in those starts and actually be able to like trust it a little bit. And that's a big thing for that level is just like, can you just have the confidence to throw it sometimes, or can you throw it remotely close to the plate? And he checked that box for me for sure. I think his changeup gets really under. It doesn't get enough respect when I read scouting reports about him because I think it showed better than that with South Bend.
100% agree.
We got a few more guys I want to hit here with starting pitchers before getting to the relievers. Kenten Egbert is a guy that you're going to have a blast watching this year, BK. He's got the leg kick. He's got the vibes, and really had a really great year last year in Myrtle Beach. If there's guys, like we talk about guys in this organization that are kind of under the radar, the Sam Armstrong really stands out for me as a guy that's kind of under the radar. If we're going under that radar, I think you get to Kenten Egbert, and I think that he's a guy that is going to be a little bit older for the level. I think he's a Miami, Ohio guy, Maction, and so we'll see him in South Bend, probably another rotation. He might get some innings out of the bullpen, but I know you didn't get a chance to see him last year. But Brian, you like what you saw from Kenten Egbert last year, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be some like Nico Zeglin vibes of just like a guy that comes in and executes and, throws pitches where they're supposed to. I actually want to ask BK about Nick Dean in case he comes back to South Bend, because Nick, I feel like was your guys' best pitcher for a stretch in the summer. And then, I don't know, it seemed to me like it was almost he ran out of gas a little bit at the end, but a guy that definitely showed that he belongs at levels even higher than this, right?
Totally. And, I don't want to speak for Nick because, I'm not in the business too, but he was banged up towards the end. So I think it's like a car that you're trying to get to the gas station and the light's on. You're like, oh, can we make it one more? Can we make it one more rest stop? And credit to him, he did. And he got to the gas station right before it went on E and the season ended. But no, you talk about a guy that completely emptied the tank for a season. It's Nick Dean, and I have a lot of respect for him because I saw him in the training room every day with Nick Roberts, and it didn't look enjoyable a lot of the time seeing that. So, yeah, I really like him. I think he, in my opinion, he could be a really good like 6th, 7th inning guy.
Mm-hmm.
A really good 6th, 7th inning guy because I think he could throw harder than he has as a starter. I think his curveball is disgusting, but kind of the same thing as Wiggins. What you were saying, B. Smith, that changeup I think should rate a lot higher in the org than it does, and maybe it doesn't because getting towards the back end of last year he was getting roughed up a little bit. But I think look at the first 3 Nick Dean starts in South Bend from I think July. And that's all. That's the tape you should watch. That's the tape you should watch because it was gnarly. So no, I'm very, very high on Nick Dean.
I'll point out that to fill out the rotation, we're likely going to see probably a couple, at least one, maybe 2 draft picks from last year's class. And I don't want to get into the details of who they are because honestly, I don't know. I have Ryan Gallagher and Brooks Capel plugged into my lineup or my rotation projected for South Bend, but it could be one of the 7 other college arms that got drafted last year, and that wouldn't be surprising to me. What I will ask you, BK, is we saw this last year with Will Sanders, right, where he was assigned to South Bend to start off the year after being drafted the year previously. How hard is that for those guys to be starting off in high A after being a college draft pick from the previous year?
Extremely, and more mentally than physically, because they have a certain number of bullets that they're allotted. And for Will, I had this conversation with Will. I remember exactly. We were sitting in Lansing, and he was pitching twice that week. And he started on Tuesday, was okay, and he came back on Sunday and just absolutely shoved. And I remember talking to him midweek, and it was funny because the Tuesday start was a education day or whatever. And
early morning.
It was his first time pitching an education day, and credit to Lansing, they filled that stadium up, and there were kids upon kids upon kids, and the broadcast booth in Lansing is right up with the fans, so you hear pretty much everything. The kids were getting on him, getting on Will Sanders, and I was like, "Oh my goodness! How do you guys know what this means?" Some of the things they were saying, and I remember sitting with Will later that week, and I was kind of dragging him for making fun of him for that. But no, actually, he mentioned how tough it is mentally because when you're a college guy and you're making your first few sets of pro starts, you hit the 30, 45 mark and you're coming out.
Yeah.
You want to do everything in your power to be perfect. And when you try and be perfect, that's usually when things go wrong. So as he progressed through the summer and got more bullets to work with, you could see him not only improve with command, but the breaking stuff got even more chase heavy for these guys because he was throwing it with more confidence. I remember there was a start in Beloit like last April, and it was freezing. It's like 30 degrees. And yeah, it didn't. I think he went like 2/3 of an inning, and there was just no first pitch strikes, and that's what derailed him. And that's another thing. Like if you're a college guy coming out like Will, and you're not throwing first pitch strikes, you're not going to last more than 2 innings. It's just not going to happen. So, yeah, I mean, and that's why the mental toll it's way more than physical. Because heck, I mean, these guys in college are throwing complete games, and it's no problem. When they get to the pro game, the full mental approach takes over.
Yeah, I always think about, the Cubs have a rule, and I think a lot of organizations do, that you're not allowed to throw a certain number of pitches an inning. Like you get to probably about 30 in South Bend is when you come out, and you can almost notice with pitchers when they're new to the level, when they start getting to like pitch 18 and they only have one out, like it affects the way that it goes the next 12 pitches, right? And especially like these college guys that were probably aces at their schools, like they didn't have to worry about that. Their coaches were going to like make them get through that inning because they were going to be the best option for the next inning. And so like, I think guys really have to learn not just to be economical, but to like not let your mind start freaking out like, oh my God, I'm not going to get out of the first inning of this start because, I gave up a full count, bloop single and walked the next guy. And all of a sudden I'm at 13 pitches with nobody out. Like that's something I feel like you see, especially when I watch, Brendan's broadcast all the time are guys that are just like, they really look like they're just sort of sweating that 1 inning limit out there.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about it that way, but you're right. Couple relievers I want to hit on. There are, if you can correctly predict half of the relievers between South Bend and Myrtle Beach, then you are a crazy man. I can't. So we're going to cover 2 guys here that BK you're familiar with, and I have projected to go back to the South Bend bullpen. That's Grant Kipp and Marino Santy. And those are 2 guys that are fun for 2 different reasons, but both very fun to watch. What do you like about those 2 guys?
I'll start with the Kipper, the versatility.
Yeah.
First things first. Guy's a bulldog, not just because he's a Yale bulldog, no pun intended, but you ask him to do anything in the world, and he'll do it. And that's not just on the mound. You ask him to go sign an autograph. You ask him to go to Children's Hospital. You ask him to do an appearance with Stu. You ask him to dress up as Stu. He'll probably do it for you. That'd be a very tall Stu, by the way, at 6'6". No, one of the smartest dudes I've ever been around in just of how he digests his outings. It's like remember that viral clip years ago of Sean McVay, and they asked him like, let's talk about this play in the 3rd quarter with 8 minutes left against the Seahawks in week 3. And he rattled off the play perfectly.
Yeah.
You could ask Grant Kipp, hey, what was your 47th pitch on April 16th in 2023 when you were in Myrtle Beach? Oh, yeah, it was a slider low and away. He could do that, no question, without any sort of issue. So the way he works off the mound is as dialed in as anybody I've ever been around. And I really hope he can stay healthy this year, because when he got hurt after his first start last season, he was our number 2 starter, and he was primed for a big year. And he was pretty good in that start against Quad Cities before he left with injury. And then he came back in Dayton. He had to throw out of the bullpen. And he had a long travel day, and that first appearance didn't go well. And he started to find it. So I think more than anything, I'm really hopeful for a full healthy season for Grant Kipp, because the sweeper is gross. That's as good of a pitch in the org as I've been around. And I think, again, a healthy season is in order for Grant. And I really hope it is, because he's a great dude. And then Santy, Greg, last year we talked about him, and I was so excited to see him because he had as big of a hype about him as more than anybody I've heard from in the Oregon. Another guy with crazy versatility, and for somebody that's not overly big, I mean, he packs a punch. The fastball, the zip on the fastball, it's kind of like, I used to work in professional softball. When he roofs the fastball, it's almost like a rise ball in softball. So, yeah, again, I think the big thing with those 2 guys is a healthy 2025, and I hope they both get it, because That's as dangerous of a weapon to have for somebody. Those long relievers that can help fill starts. I mean, those are rare to have in the minor leagues, and the Cubs have 2 of them.
Brian, those Marino Santy is kind of like the combination of what we're talking about with Drew Gray and Jaxon Wiggins. Like, he's got the stuff, he just has to find the zone, and then also like the Grant Kipp, where he's kind of flexible. He can be a starter, he can be a reliever. Obviously, leaning more towards reliever now, but him and his size kind of lends itself well to that kind of attack angle with his fastball to go along with the curveball. It's pretty damn good too.
Yeah, I love that BK went with not overly big as his description of Marino Santy. That's what a generous broadcaster term for a short king. And I
didn't want to throw him under the bus.
And I mean, both guys that I think that are going to benefit personally from starting pitcher depth in the organization, because guys that can really thrive in the bullpen, and that will improve their chances at pitching in AAA. And then, you're just knocking on the door there and one hot streak away. So those guys, I think if they get full bullpen looks and they don't have to have that sort of like, hey, we're going to need you to start this week on top of things, like if they can be, 1 inning, 5 out type guys, I think they can have a lot of success.
Yeah. Brian, are there any other arms that we haven't mentioned that you wanted to detail here?
I think there are 2 guys. I believe I'm right, Huss. Didn't both Shane Marshall and Vince Riley pitch in the Arizona Fall League?
Yeah, they were both on the roster. I don't know if they both got in games, but yeah, they were both on the roster down there.
Those are 2 guys that, obviously the Cubs thought high enough to send to that level. Both talented arms, capable of, mid-90s fastballs. This is just going to be Shane Marshall's second year pitching. Those to me are going to be Nick's natural choices to be the closers out of the gate. One of those 2 guys, and excited to see if one of them can take that next jump up and get to Tennessee pretty quickly, or Knoxville, as it were.
Yeah. I'll tack on Let the Record Show for the second episode in 3 episodes that I am a Mitchell Tyransky guy. Mitchell Tyransky is a guy that I am excited to watch in South Bend this year. So, BK.
Yeah.
Any other players that you're excited about? Anything else you're excited? Whether it's a guy that's going to be in South Bend, a guy who's going to be in Iowa, a guy who you're excited to see later in the year. Anybody else that you want to shout out before we wrap things up here?
Well, I feel like I do this every year because I love them. And this is probably a later in the year thing, but the return of Cole Franklin is going to be outstanding.
Mm-hmm.
And listen, guys, I love every player I work with. I try and I do my best to be, as hands-on as I can with getting to know guys as a human before I get to know them just as a player. And I root for everybody. I hope everybody can make the big leagues. And I know that's not possible. But with that being said, there is nobody in this organization that deserves a spot at Wrigley Field than Cole Franklin. Based on everything he's gone through, he's seen the ups and downs of this organization, and he's done it all with grace, and he's done it all with professionalism, and he has just done his job. He's taken the ball when he's been asked to, with 0 questions asked. And, it's probably a weird time for Cole. And, I haven't caught up with him in like a phone call in a little bit, but we were talking like, I don't know, maybe before Christmas. And it was like, as Brennan Davis was leaving, and that was a weird time. And, it sucks when you lose friends. It sucks when you lose friends. Whether that's like our lives or baseball or anything, losing friends isn't fun. So, but still, he's going to show up every day. He's going to give 100%, and he's going to shove. And I just hope, I just hope that this never happens again, and he can just pitch and do what he does best. Because if he does, that's going to be a start at Wrigley that everybody should be excited about, and I can't wait for it because nobody deserves it more. So, shout out Cole Franklin.
I couldn't have said it better myself. So we'll wrap up with that. BK, where can we find you? Where can we listen to you right now? Where can we listen to you when the South Bend season rolls around? How can we listen to you talk sports?
Yeah, so right now I've got about 2 weeks left where I'm currently talking to you from in Indianapolis. We're getting set to cover the NCAA tournament. Sweet 16 and Elite 8 is going to be here. So best of luck to everybody filling out their brackets. I cannot wait to see Rick Pitino versus John Calipari in the round of 32. That is going to be must-watch television. We'll be covering it here in Indy on 107.5 The Fan, 107.5thefan.com. And then, yeah, I mean, April 4th, opening day up in Beloit. It's probably going to be pretty chilly, but we'll hope for the best. You can catch South Bend Cubs baseball, as always, on Sports Radio 960 WSBT in South Bend. That's 960 AM, 96.1 FM. And then if you want to catch it online, you could get the call anytime at WSBTradio.com. And then Twitter's at BKingSports. Instagram is Brendan King Show. And, I just want to end this, Greg and B. Smith, with I love what I do. I'm blessed to be able to do what I do. And, this is an exciting time because as a broadcaster, I feel like, I'm in a spot where I'm right on the cusp, and I know what I'm able to do, and I have a lot of fun doing it. So God willing, hopefully we just keep on moving up and, and things go well. But for the time being, I'm really happy about where I am in South Bend and look forward to bringing the games to you guys on the radio and, of course, Marquee Sports Network. So appreciate you guys.
Yeah, I mean, one of the cleanest feeds in all of minor league baseball is the South Bend feed. Everybody that's willing to listen to this podcast should certainly be willing to do what they can to get minor league baseball TV and to be able to watch Brendan's home games. What Chris and everyone in South Bend does to get just like as professional and as almost big league looking a minor league broadcast in as it gets. So cannot recommend highly enough.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, BK, thanks so much for coming on. Always a blast chatting with you, whether it's to preview the season, mid-season, just chatting with you at the park. Talk about a pro's pro, that is you. So thank you so much for coming on the show, and we'll talk with you. Coming up here soon for sure.
Yeah, guys, looking forward to catching up on a baseball diamond. It's that time of year, and can't wait.
And for those of you guys listening out there, I told you this was going to be kind of a weird month as far as the posting schedule. This is obviously coming out on Tuesday morning. We'll have an interview preview of the Myrtle Beach season later this week with Sam Wiederhaft. That'll drop, I'm not sure, maybe Thursday. And then we'll have coming up in the next couple of weeks, we'll have a Tennessee preview, and we'll have an Alex Cohen previewing the Iowa Cubs. And then we'll get into the season. It's almost time for the season, as BK said. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you guys very shortly.
Happy Matt Shaw Day.
Yeah.